Hello, everyone. This is Hollywood Joe from Hollywood's World of Sports, coming to you today with a special edition of Hollywood's Hot Topics. Recently, the college football season concluded championship weekend with conference championships being decided, and uh, the day after most of those championships were decided, the college football playoff committee announced the final four. Um, for the college football playoff, and they are Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, and Notre Dame. Now, this year has been a weird year for sports in general, and we've seen exceptions made in every sport, even college football, because the Big Ten made an exception for Ohio State to be able to play and win the Big Ten championship because they were short on games and didn't have the required amount of games. So um, it got me to thinking that, the college football playoffs are really flawed. They're really, for me, lately, over the last couple of years, it feels like the college football playoffs are more about the money, the popularity, um, than it is about fairness and who actually belongs there. I've said from the beginning that the college football playoffs need to be 8 teams. Because quite frankly, I'm tired of seeing the same 4 to 5 teams end up in the playoffs every single year. It doesn't make it fun. It doesn't make it worth watching. Um, only certain parts of the country are invested. Only certain conferences have an investment when it comes to the playoffs. So I've sat here and I thought about it and thought about it, like what would be a good solution. And the first solution, and really the only solution I came up with, is what, we have the Power Five conferences. We have the ACC, the Big Ten, the Big 12, SEC, and Pac-12. Those are the Power Five. So this is my thought. The winner of each of those conferences goes into a playoff. They go into the college football playoff. Then you have 3 spots empty. Those 3 spots should be determined by strength of schedule and how many wins you have. And for me, I would put more emphasis on strength of schedule because anybody can go out and win 9 or 10 games if they're playing easy opponents. It's a different thing when you have a tough schedule the whole entire year and you're having to grind to get those wins out. Like, for example, I thought Texas A&M had a tough schedule. Probably should have been in, the playoffs. The Florida Gators, they were ranked, I think, 7th going in against Alabama. They took Alabama to the limit. They took Alabama down to the wire. And I personally would rather see a rematch of Florida and Alabama than I do Alabama versus Ohio State. I don't think Ohio State stands a chance in the college football playoffs. And based on what Notre Dame did against Clemson in the ACC conference championship, I don't think Notre Dame stands a chance either. So, you have actually, now that I'm thinking about it, it's Alabama taking on Notre Dame and Clemson taking on Ohio State. And those semifinal matches don't seem like a lot of fun to watch. I personally think they're going to be blowouts. Personally, I don't see Notre Dame getting close to beating Alabama. I don't see Ohio State getting close to beating Clemson. I will be very shocked if the college football finals end up being Ohio State versus Notre Dame. I just don't see it. Ohio State really hasn't been tested this year because of circumstances. Notre Dame, yeah, they went 10-1. Um, but look at what they did against a healthy Clemson team. They got blown out by a healthy Clemson team. And so going forward, I really think the playoffs need to be 8 teams. A lot of people feel that way. A lot of people feel like the Power Five, all those conferences should be represented in the playoffs. Um, and honestly, why wouldn't you want more teams in the playoffs? That means more money and more ratings and more advertisers for college football. Sure, the revenue split might have to go more ways because you have more teams. But like if I'm the Pac-12 or I'm the Big 12 right now, why do I care what happens in the college football playoffs this year? Neither one of those conferences is being represented. Um, so I really think that times need to change, and I personally think again that in order to be playoff eligible, you must win your conference championship. And that might not sit well with Notre Dame fans because prior to this year, Notre Dame was an independent college for football. They weren't in a division. They didn't have to play divisional opponents. And somehow they've been able to get in, the last couple of years. Whereas this year they joined the ACC because of the circumstances that we're in, and they had to play divisional opponents. And it actually made for very good football. But because they had to play divisional opponents, they met Clemson in the ACC championship game, and they lost. And that should go against them. Now, I'm not saying that all the losers of the championship games shouldn't have a chance to be in the playoffs in those 3 wildcard spots that I mentioned to you, but you got to look at the championship game itself. Notre Dame got blown out, whereas again, Florida in their championship game against Alabama, even though they only lost by a touchdown. They they hung in with Alabama right to the very end. So, in my opinion, I would have put in Florida in over Notre Dame. I also would have put either Texas A&M or Cincinnati over Ohio State. I felt like Texas A&M had um, the stronger schedule, and obviously Cincinnati went undefeated. So I don't understand the logic of what they're doing with the college football playoffs. Maybe I got it all wrong. Maybe I'm not seeing something that the committee is seeing, but based on the football I've watched this year, it's more apparent and evident than ever that the college football playoffs and how they're determined is very, very flawed. And again, that's why it needs to go to 8 teams. That is why the winners of the Power Five conferences need to be represented in the playoffs. And again, that's why there's 3 wildcard spots open based on strength of schedule and record. And, away we go. So, I don't know. I'm very frustrated with it. Um, like I said, it seems like it's the same 4 to 5 teams, 4 to 6 teams every single year. And most of them come out of the SEC. or ACC. And, obviously the Big Ten, Ohio State's in there usually at the end of each year, but I don't blame Cincinnati and Texas A&M for having a gripe and being upset that they missed the playoffs this year. Because again, I do feel that the college football playoff system is very flawed and it is very oriented towards money, ratings, advertisers, and which teams have the most popularity. So I could go on and on all day about it, but I'm sure there's other things you'd rather be doing and listening to. So with that being said, my name is Hollywood Joe from Hollywood's World of Sports. This has been another special edition of Hollywood's Hot Topics. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Reddit, YouTube, and all the other social media outlets out there. I hope you all have a wonderful Christmas and a happy New Year. But remember, as always, controversy doesn't come without criticism.